Welcome back. You're watching News Now. Now, RedSeer has released its latest report, which predicts that the B2B general commerce market in India would reach $1.2 trillion by 2030, with e-B2B emerging as the potential digital procurement option. The retail sector in India is also expected to double in size from a $0.7 trillion to a $1.4 trillion over the next 5 years. To talk more on this, we have with us Nikhil Dalal, Associate Partner, RedSeer. Nikhil, welcome to ET Now. Now, RedSeer has been tracking India's path to 1 trillion digital economy as early as 2026. Where does the institutional investor confidence stand, and are global and domestic investors aligned on India growth thesis, or are they divergent views on the timeline and sectoral bets?
Yeah, sure. So I think from the India market perspective, we are clearly seeing a strong conviction from both global as well as domestic institutional investors. I think there are 2 to 3 broad reasons for it. One, today we have seen so many listings in the public market already with respect to New Age India, which itself is a clear indication in terms of the confidence of the investors into the market. Second, we are clearly seeing that consumption is seeing a clear shift across different segments in India. So whether it's retail or services, right? So we are seeing the consumptions and the spending is significantly increasing at least in the digital, at least on the digital side of the world, which is different online applications in India. Right? So that is clearly a big growth that we have seen in the 2025 year, and that is continuing in CY26 as well. At least the early part of January shows that. So that again is institutionalizing the confidence of the investors into the economy of India. Third, we are also seeing that because the story is not about are the investors convinced, it is or looking at the India market with respect to whether this will grow. I think there is a clear confidence of the investors into the on the Indian economy and the companies which are coming up in India. The question is that which will be the winners into the market in the next 1 to 2 years, and who will be the one who is able to execute their strategies well. I think that is the main question that we are seeing getting continuously asked in the last 1 or 2 months at the start of 2026. So clearly a positive momentum as per my view for the India economy, both digital as well as the non-digital side of the investments, and from both global as well as domestic investors in India.
Now, you have advised 50 plus companies on their IPO journeys, and your IPO readiness index says roughly 1/3 of India's 200 new age unicorns and soon to be icons are already IPO ready. Given the weak secondary market sentiment in early 2026, how are you advising companies on their IPO timelines, and is there a risk the IPO window closes before these companies can monetize investor interest?
Yeah, so I think what we are typically working with the companies, whenever we are working with any of the companies who want to sort of raise money, we typically work with them in terms of how they can sort of increase their scale, increase their revenues, and also at the same time work on the profitability side of the aspect. What we do take into account is the overall market dynamics. So because we have a strong understanding of how the market has been evolving in the last 5 to 10 years of the digital business in India. So we have a clear understanding in terms of what are the winning themes for different kinds of models, for different kinds of sectors in India, whether it is retail or service or let's say fintech side of the world to or a media entertainment. So because of that knowledge, we have been able to advise a lot of these big startups which are now corporates and going public on how they can really ensure that their scale rises profitably, and which are the areas that they have to keep into mind when even the smallest of the areas when they're going public, how do they really take that into account. So from an operational aspect, from a scale aspect, and anything else that is there from a governance angle, we are able to advise them with our experience of the past few years into the public sector and helping the economies on helping the companies on getting listed. Second, I think see from a sentiment perspective, while we are seeing that there are a lot of listings which are there. There are a lot of companies which have already started their processes around how do they really understand the timing of the market well. So there are enough case studies and proof points now into the digital economy of India that at what point in time you list and with a clear intent on why you're getting listed and what are the returns that you can make out of it, right? So there is a clear pathway that has been established, and the set of companies who want.
Also, now your reports flagged quick commerce, beauty and personal care, and digital gaming as three of India's fastest growing retail and digital categories. As per your reading, help us understand which of these sectors offer the best risk-adjusted return and where is the growth story still underpriced by the markets?
Yeah, I can comment on the general growth story, right? So in the next 2 to 3 years, we definitely see that at least on the overall online retail as a services perspective, we are seeing strong growth in the segments like quick commerce, value commerce, as well as a lot of new age brands which are coming and growing on India in the India ecosystem. So the growth seems pretty strong. We have already seen last year growing quite strong of growth of more than 20% in the online retail ecosystem, which is one of the fastest in the last 3 to 4 years. So that I think is a clear proof point in terms of that the trajectory is on a positive note for online retail. Second, we're also seeing a few set of models within, let's say, services side too, who are sort of coming and growing into the market, whether you talk about maybe home services as a model or within finances, you're talking about wealth as a specific theme. All these companies are showing extremely high growth trajectory, both on their top line as well as on the bottom line as well. So that is a clear indication that we are seeing that in the next 3 to 4 years, a good percentage of private final consumption expenditure will come onto the online world, which is India's digital economy, and that itself is a clear indication in terms of there is a strong conviction of the users spending on the digital apps in India, and hence as the growth story is looking positive, because of that there should be more than enough listings in India, which again strengthens the confidence of the investors in terms of the growth of the India market overall.
Indian startup ecosystem has shifted from growth at all costs to disciplined profitability, and even you have noted that 65% of the new age firms are expected to be profit making by FY30 versus 35% in FY19. Does this transition risk compressing growth optionality, and are investors now over-indexing on profitability at the cost of backing the next wave of high growth disruptors?
Sure. So I think for any company who's starting their growth, who's starting their journey into the tech ecosystem in India, at least, which are stepping into the digital side of the world, we see that the first outcome obviously is on the first focus is on the setting up of the operations and hence the growth of the users and their spends. And that's what has happened in the last few years in the digital economy. And as these companies have evolved, that's when the question of profitability really is now coming into play. In fact, there are a lot of models which are seeing profitability at a very young age now. As you rightly mentioned, there is a disciplined set of execution that these companies are doing, but also the other set of companies which have been existing into the Indian market for quite some time.
Absolutely. That was Nikhil Dalal from RedSeer joining us and giving us an insight on their study on e-commerce. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Now. Goodbye from me, Shabani Gharat.